throughout the district, regardless what school you go to, will have consistent morning and afternoon meetings, consistent office hours. They will have a consistent specialist time, as well as small group and intervention group instruction. And their instructional content bands will also be the same. And we've done that really intentionally because we know some families are relying on each other and need to support each other during this time. So being able to have that consistency was really important to us and important to our families. Additionally, we've also really are trying to meet the needs of our families that are having bandwidth issues within their households. So we tried to create a schedule that had some staggered start times based on grade level bands. So we anticipate that this will better accommodate multiple Zoom meetings and some other connectivity issues. But each morning we'll begin with the class meeting via Zoom, and it'll have instructional components and expectations for the day, as well as the social emotional connection for students, and maybe some other math content. And we'll also have an afternoon Zoom session, which will update of the instructional activities of the day and kind of start winding down the day and providing closure together. But between our Zoom sessions, we will have Google Classroom engagement with our teachers and students, small group instruction, office hours, instructional activities. There will be a lot, but it will be consistent, it'll be predictable, and there will be support embedded within it. More specific information by grade level in terms of our schedule will be posted online tomorrow.
And Kelly, I think, I know I've heard you say this before, kids aren't going to be on the screen for 6 hours.
No. They will not.
There's built-in breaks, there's built-in activity breaks and other
Absolutely.
things. We're very aware, but there will be beginnings to the day and ends to the day and things that you can count on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Linda.
Faye?
Thanks. Very similar to elementary, one of our goals was consistency. We know that especially with our middle and high school students, having that schedule and having the expectations of being in school is really important for engagement and participation, and building community within both the classroom and within the school. So the high and the middle school schedules look very similar, with the exception of the fact the high school is on a 4-period day and the middle school is on a 6-period day. And each period, the high school is an hour long in period and the middle school is 50 minutes. And that's
okay. You said a 6-period day or a 4-period day. I think you mean a 4-period week, or, you know, because they aren't going to have them all every day, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is our plan, is that they're a little bit shorter in duration so that we can build time in for students to do some work both online in class with synchronously with their with their classmates, and also independently, and reach in to get support as they need it. Both of the different levels have the afternoons kind of built out a little bit differently, because we've shrunk the periods a little bit. The high school will have time in the afternoon to do more of the small group work, to check in, to provide targeted support. And in the afternoon for the middle school, they will have 3 periods, and we're going to alternate the mornings and afternoons each day. So on Monday and Thursday, our students will have periods 1, 2, and 3 in the morning. And on Tuesdays and Fridays, they will have periods 4, 5, and 6 in the mornings. And then in the afternoon, they will have some targeted work for the periods that they didn't have in the morning that will prepare them for the next day's learning, and also allow them time to work on what they were learning in the morning. And then again, our teachers will be available for them should they need individual or targeted support or extension, and some additional challenge. So it'll be very consistent. Our goal was to really reduce the amount of contact that our students had. If you remember in the spring, one of the things that we heard loud and clear was keeping track of so many classes, so many different teachers, was really, really overwhelming. So we want to be very focused and very consistent, but also build in time where students aren't spending the entire day glued to their device, and that they get out and do some activity as well, and take breaks between the classes in the morning. So really excited for the way our teachers have focused on meeting students' academic needs as well as their social emotional needs. and kind of finding a nice balance of pushing our students academically with a rigorous curriculum that is designed to be used online, which we've mentioned before, but we'll be using Edgenuity as more of our textbook, and Canvas as kind of our classroom where our students will go to engage and connect. And that's where everything will be housed in Canvas. And from there, they'll go out to Edgenuity and intergroup discussions and access their Zoom links, and it's looking good.
Thank
So
you.
we heard a bit from Dr. Quinn at the front end, and Dr. Quinn, you talked about the website. Faye, Kelly, you both talked about kind of the schedules and what students can expect to hear. So that was a good introduction to our program today. I'm going to move us on, and we're going to look at some questions that we received in advance. We received some of these questions by email. We received some of these questions through our Facebook page, and we received some of these through our main line, through people calling our main line at the district office. And I'm actually going to start with some of those questions that we received by phone. The first question that we received by phone is, what type of device should my student have for school in the fall?
Any device that they have is probably the best one to use. Any device that will connect to the internet should be sufficient for any of the instruction that's going on as part of our distance learning.
Great, okay. And we had quite a few device related questions. So I'm gonna go ahead and read all of those. These all came in via phone. The second device related question was, I have a device that my student can use at home, but I do not want to send it to school if and when we return this year. Should I request a district device for my student?
We would very much appreciate it if you did not. We are trying very hard to make sure that all of our students have a device so they can access instruction. So if you have a device that will work while we're learning from home, that would be great, because that takes a little pressure off, and we can provide devices to more students. We ordered 700 additional Chromebooks this last spring in anticipation of this needing to be able to provide these devices. And unfortunately, everybody in the world has done the same thing. So our guaranteed August delivery has turned into a sometime in September. So if you have devices that will work while the students are at home, we will recalibrate and readjust, and we will work to find devices for the students that need them when they come back to school. So if you could buy us some time, it would be greatly appreciated.
Great, thank you. Next question, also via the phone. When will students receive devices at the elementary and secondary level?
So secondary devices will be handed out next week. The schedule will be published on the website tomorrow. Students should have received a call or a contact from their individual school with the schedule. So the Vista, Horizon, and Ferndale High students should have received an call or an email from the individual school with that schedule. And the elementary handout will take place after the 2nd of September. And that information will be published as well on the website.
So
Okay,
Kelly,
great.
you have students in the district. Have they gotten their emails about their devices?
I do. I have 2 boys that attend Ferndale High School, and they received an email on Wednesday regarding the expectations of how to get their device and when to get their device, as well as how to access their kind of credentials for their device. So yes, I did receive that as a parent.
And those came through the email?
Through my Skyward email, yes.
Okay, good.
Very good. Okay, I'm going to look to a few questions we're getting live here, and then we'll move on to some of the ones we got in advance. Mary would like to know if there will be a lunch distribution program in the fall.
Yes, there will. It will be on Wednesdays, and it will be 5 days worth of meals distributed at one time. So you'll get a 10 meal box, and the times will be during the day and into the evening as well. So there's a little flexibility on the timing and the location as to where you can pick those up. Information will be available on the reopening website tomorrow.
Great. So we have several questions. Felicia, Chrissy, and Carrie are wondering about the schedule and working parents. Can we talk to kind of what that looks like for working parents?
We wrestled a long time with the need for structure and the need for flexibility. We landed on, as Kelly and Faye both described, predictable schedules with check-ins throughout the day. And we think it's important for students to have that kind of predictability and to stay engaged. We learned that from last year. However, we also know we're also really, really cognizant of the struggles for families who are on different schedules. We want, to the greatest extent possible, we want students to be able to connect with their teachers live and when the classes are offered. We will work with individual families to try to come up with accommodations when that doesn't work. But we'll be taking attendance and doing things. But like I say, it's not every hour of every day, but there will be some very predictable times for that. And we want kids to think about school as school.
I'm going to take another live question, then we'll go back to the advanced questions. Lots of questions about devices, Mark. Brian, Kelly, they all have questions related to bringing their personal devices to school. And could you just say, go back over what you said at the beginning about devices and bringing them to school?
We're more than happy to we've turned on the BYOD, the bring your own device or use your own device functionality in our network. So if students have devices that they would like to bring and use, that's great. There are also on the website that we referred to, there are some insurance options for parents if they would like to buy insurance for their own devices, as well as school devices if they are nervous about their kids bringing their own equipment. And also, if you have devices that you're comfortable with your kids using while they're at home and not so much bringing them to school, I've had a lot of elementary parents that have kind of raised that as a concern. We will work to provide devices for the kids once we get back into school. So if you have devices that you can use at home, we encourage you to do so. And we will work to get devices handed out to students that need them once we start back in person.
As Mark mentioned earlier, we thought we were getting a jump on things. We ordered 700 Chromebooks last spring with a guarantee of an August delivery that's now been pushed back to September. So we will have a stock of devices by the time we're back in in-person school that we can use, but it would be very helpful if there's a device at home that can be used if people don't take one in September.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. I'm going to move us on to one of the questions we received in advance. This one's from Danielle. She said, I've noticed Blaine is holding virtual new student orientations for incoming middle schools and freshmen. Will Ferndale do something similar?
I can share that. I know that both of the middle schools in the spring put together a video virtual tour that are both available online on the district and school websites. But one of the things that we really want to let families know is that over the next couple of weeks, as we re-enter and start the school year, our staff have been really working hard to develop orientation activities for those first few weeks. Everything from how to be an effective virtual learner, how to learn in a distance model, how to meet and greet, how to build relationships. We know that relationships are really critical to student learning. So that's going to be a really big focus for all of our schools over the first couple of weeks, is building those relationships, building that community, so that it feels like I'm in a class with my friends and, you know, we get to know each other. And as Kelly shared at the elementary school, the middle schools are also going to be setting up conferences for the first few days of school. And that intent is to really get to our teachers and our students and the families to get to know each other and build those relationships and kind of understand a little bit about where people are and what their needs are, and how we as educators can support our students returning to school, returning to learning, and just getting to know a little bit more about them.
So Faye, I heard you say the middle schools did virtual tours. Do you know if Ferndale High School did?
They didn't, but I know that they are working on it, and they are also looking at how to kind of recreate some of that experience. We realized that particularly for our CTE and hands-on programs, that those tours in the spring are so important for students to understand what kind of options are out there for them and what they can explore to meet their interests. So that's something that the high school is really going to work hard on, is to kind of showcase some of those programs that, you know, we might not even think of as being out there and available.
But I appreciate that question, because I'll make sure to resurface those middle school tours on our new website. Make sure that they get a prominent space there.
Thank
Very
you.
good idea. I'm going to move on to a question from Amy. Amy said, upon returning to in-person learning at the elementary level, if and when that happens, will the students have CDC authorized masks, or will they be required to provide their own?
The one thing that we know for sure right now is that face coverings will be required for everyone who's in the buildings. And that is a very strong part of the reopening plan and the recommendations of the task force. Once we realized that we were going to be open remotely, we didn't get down into the fine details on all of the things that will need to happen for our in-person learning. What we do know is face coverings will be required. We know that we will hope that we're expecting families and children to come with their own face coverings. We know we will have a limited supply of face coverings in the buildings for ones that get broken or dirty or forgotten. And I might also mention that we do have a supply of cloth face coverings that we will be distributing to families who need them at various opportunities, device checkout, meal distribution sites. So, and those, Mark, came from Whatcom
Unified.
Whatcom Unified Command. So they're white cloth face coverings, and we will be handing those out. We have several thousand that we can distribute.
That's great. Okay, I'm going to move us along to a question from Holly. Holly says, can you address what is being discussed for the developmental preschool students and what school will look like for these students?
Yes, I'll take that one. Thanks, Holly. Our developmental preschool teachers and specialists that support those students have been working on developing a schedule and really, especially designing the instruction that will happen in a remote learning environment to support the unique learning needs of our little learners. In addition, our preschool teachers are going to be reaching out to our families to ensure that you are indicating what kind of a model you're interested in that registration process, and talking about what instructional resources you might need to be provided to coordinate with the instruction that's happening remotely. So look for communication from your preschool teacher in the next few weeks to customize those resources for you.
Great, thank you, Rebecca. We have a question from Maria, and this came in via our Ferndale School District Facebook page. She says, I'm a deaf parent and I know there are a few more deaf parents in the district. Is there a way that these videos will be closed captioned or add an ASL interpreter? I would like to know what's been all discussed and stay up to date with what's happening in the new norm we're all going through. So I'll just go ahead and speak on our behalf on this one. We did a little bit of research into best practices for closed captioning. And one of the things that we noticed is that we can turn on a setting on Zoom that basically adds a closed captioning. So we are recording this. And so what we think is that after we're done with this, that we will be able to post this with closed captioning. So this is our first attempt at turning on that setting. So please be patient with us if it didn't work. If it doesn't work through Zoom, we can upload it through YouTube and get the closed captioning added in that way. So give us just a little bit of time after we wrap this video up, and we're working hard on that because we definitely agree.
And I really appreciate that question. We are working hard to get our information out in a variety of languages and meeting the needs of people. So thank you very much for raising that question. It made us do a little research, and that's a good thing. And we're going to address that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to move on to a question from Kylin, and this was via the Ferndale School District Facebook page. She says, why still no information about special education services and how those services will be provided to students?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. So I think that to be clear that all of our services in Ferndale School District will be delivered via distance learning model to adhere to the current safety and health expectations that were outlined by the Whatcom County Health Department. We will be working to implement the IEPs to the greatest extent possible, and that will be in coordination with the family and the general ed services that are being provided so that students have an opportunity to engage in their general ed instruction and receive that specially designed instruction to meet their IEP goals, in addition to services provided by any specialist that they work with, SLPs, OTs, PTs, and that's really important as we launch into this distance learning model. We will also continue to do evaluations for special education, reevaluations, and hold annual IEP meetings in a timely manner, and hold those meetings via Zoom or in phone conference to meet the social distancing and safety requirements currently in place. We're also working to increase the amount of synchronous or real-time instruction, working directly with the teacher and support staff for all of our students. And so I think you'll see more opportunities for services delivered over what was offered in the spring. So our staff are working really hard to make that happen. And then in addition, you will be getting contacted directly by your IEP case manager and all the service providers that work with your child to build a customized schedule that works around your needs and the needs of the student and what's happening in their general ed classes.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. I'm going to move on to a question that we received from Gary. Gary says, when might we see a school supply list? I'm hoping to get this done before school starts, but we haven't seen any new lists, especially in regards to starting remotely and what is needed for the elementary schools.
I'll answer that. Gary, thanks for the question. We have an elementary leadership team and secondary leadership teams that have functioned throughout the summer. And we are actually planning to work on that with that team tomorrow. So it's our hope that we get that out and posted on the website early next week. So please look for that early next week at the elementary level.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm going to look to a question we received on Facebook from Dusty. Dusty says, Dusty is wondering regarding connectivity, and she would like to know what the district is doing for students who may live in an area where connectivity is a challenge.
We are currently pursuing several different solutions. Probably the easiest one that it looks like there are a couple of different avenues to address are those of affordability. So if internet is available in the area and it's a matter of being able to afford it, there's a county program as well as a state program available to help with the financial aspect of getting connected. There are a few areas that there just really isn't a good option, whether it be a Wi-Fi hotspot, a signal booster, or one of the other alternate providers like PogoZone or a satellite. or microwave internet providers. So that's where we're struggling the most right now. So again, I would reiterate, like I said last week, please get that information submitted on the reopening survey, the enrollment survey, the registration survey. I guess that's still available on the website. So if you haven't done that, please do. Those of you that have, and I think we've had over 500 people say they have unreliable or very slow internet, you will be contacted here shortly by somebody from your school asking for more details. Because unfortunately, we're going to be a little bit on a case-by-case, depending on your address and what your particular situation is. So we've got a few different options. We're working with the cell phone providers. If there's a tower in the neighborhood, we're working on hotspots. I know PogoZone's got a couple of new towers going up. I just heard from T-Mobile. They put a new tower up on Lummi Island. So some things are going on that should make it improvements, but it's going to be a case by case. So we're going to need your particular information to provide a solution. So get us that information if you haven't, and watch for a contact from your school.
So Mark, just to emphasize, number one, get that registration survey in, because that gives us the information that you have issues with connectivity, and then we'll be working on with those families. Is that right?
Correct. There'll be more follow-up once we get that information.
Great. Okay, that's great. I'm going to take 2 more questions, and then we're out of time for today. Jennifer, oops, just lost it here. Okay, I had another one. Marylise, I saw a question from Marylise earlier, and she said she talked about the acceptable platforms. Mark, you talked to the specifics around devices and what kind of devices will work for students. She had an additional question regarding the platform. So Microsoft, Apple, are there any that are not acceptable?
No.
If I just add something to this conversation, is tomorrow when our website is updated, under one of the technology tabs, there are also some just generalized recommendations for operating systems, just because we have had several families that have contacted us as they're going to potentially purchase devices. So we did put some recommendations for a use your own device if parents were asking questions like Marylise asked.
But any device that connects to the internet will work.
Absolutely.
So just because the device is recommended doesn't mean that's a required minimum.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you to everyone who joined us live today, Thursday, August 20th. If you didn't catch us live, we'll post this later, so hopefully you'll be able to catch it later on at your own convenience. We will be back next week. We're scheduled weekly. And we just want to answer your questions. So if you have questions in advance, you can send those in advance. You can call the Ferndale School District office to submit those, or you can reach out on our Facebook page, and we're happy to get your questions that way as well. Thank you again, and take care.